mythical places that actually exist.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Talltanic. I'm your host, Alexa. If you have a passion for mythology, then these places should definitely be on your bucket list.
The Odyssey's Cyclops Riviera, Sicily, Italy. The ancient Greek poet Homer wrote about the epic journey of Odysseus, also known as Ulysses in Roman mythology after the Trojan War. During the voyage, he encounters a fierce Cyclops and a six-headed sea monster, Scylla, which he has no option but to battle.
During the ensuing throwdown, Odysseus overcame the giant Cyclops' strength by getting him tipsy and then stabbing him in the eye. The Cyclops, named Polyphemus, was really mad, a natural reaction to someone stabbing you in your one working eye. He picked up giant boulders and hurled them at Odysseus as he escaped by boat.
This gave rise to the cluster of rocks now known as the Faraglioni, 3 sea stacks and 5 rocks jutting out of the sea in front of a small coastal town. Today the area is a nature reserve and the groups of rocks a popular sightseeing destination. We just hope the giant Cyclops is receiving a share of the financial returns. The Lost City of Ys, Brittany, France. Off the coast of the province of Brittany in France lies the mythical city of Ys, beneath the waters of Douarnenez Bay. The myth has many versions, but the most accepted is that the city was constructed by Gradlin, king of Quarnae, for his daughter. But like most offspring who request a city to be built for them, his daughter, Dahut, had dark and nefarious reasons, and the city became a place of sin. Saint Winwillow rocked up and warned Dahut that if the shenanigans continued, God would pour his wrath on them, and Dahut was like, "That'll never happen to me." Well, sort of. It all went downhill really fast. A wave as high as a mountain washed over Ys, destroying the city and submerging it below the ocean forever. The saint summoned King Gradlin to push his evil daughter into the ocean, and at first he wouldn't. Then he thought about it, and he pushed Dahut into the raging waters to sink to the depths below with her city of sin. Now the mythical city of Ys lies ruined in the bay at Douarnenez, a coastal village in Brittany. Mount Olympus, Greece. Mount Olympus was the hangout of 12 Greek gods and goddesses that enjoyed the elevated views and air of authority that the high mountain gave them. In 1961, archaeological evidence was found at the highest peak of the mountain called Agio Antonios. This evidence supports the theory that the mythical god Zeus frequented the area. The mountain is part of the Mount Olympus National Park and is being protected for its strong mythological roots, as well as the undisrupted flora and fauna found in the area. If you're an experienced hiker, you can take the hike to the summit at 9,500 feet and find out for yourself if you think it was a place occupied by gods or mere mortals. Site of the Trojan War, Troy, Turkey. Homer was a prolific writer, and another of his long poems was the epic The Iliad. The poem is about a brutal 10-year battle between the city of Troy and the Achaeans, a group of ancient Greeks. It was famously named the Trojan War, and was caused when the Prince of Troy kidnapped Helen, who was the daughter of Zeus.
Our Greek hero Odysseus is back on the scene and hatches the plan of the Trojan horse, so he and the Achaean army can penetrate Troy and besiege the city. Originally, it was thought that this was just a story, but then in the late 1800s, an archaeologist found ruins that are believed to be remnants of Troy near Turkey's northeast coast. The area is a 4,000-year-old World Heritage Site, open to the public to walk around and explore the ruins, and a reconstruction of the Trojan horse itself.
The Parthenon, Athens, Greece. The Parthenon is a grand temple structure of brilliant white marble that rests on the Acropolis of Athens. Its sheer scale and opulence of building materials is an expression and embodiment of Athenian wealth. The temple is dedicated to the city's patron, the Greek goddess Athena. The Parthenon was a venue for religious festivals, political action, and cult gatherings that could all be accommodated in its 220-foot-long building surrounded by 46 marble columns. It sits grandly atop the city of Athens, visible from anywhere in the city since it was built in the 5th century. It has enjoyed a long history, but parts of it were marred with war and struggles, and the Grand Temple was destroyed in 480 by the Persians and again in 1687 at the hand of the Venetians. ShangriLa, Himalayan mountains, Tibet. In 1933, writer James Hilton described a utopian society high in the Tibetan Himalayas called ShangriLa. Each day, life is lived in peace and wonder filled with enlightenment. The book left such an impact in everyone's minds that the word Shangri-La now appears in the dictionary as a synonym for remote paradise. The truth is, Shangri-La exists, and you can experience it right now. It's not one place, but many places in the snow-capped Himalayas. Several of these peaceful communities have claimed that Hilton was inspired by them particularly, and the China-Tibet border town of Zhandian has been renamed Shangri-La in 2001. But this does remain speculation, much like the Buddhist kingdom of Shambhala. From early morning rituals to quiet tea houses and spending time hiking the local trails, it is truly a still and tranquil utopia. Bran Castle, Transylvania, Romania. Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula, based his novel on the blood-sucking terror living in a castle in the Transylvanian forest. The castle is described as a looming stone building with towers, beautiful interiors, and surrounded by the dense mountainside forest, but of course entirely creepy and filled with bloodlusting vampires. The truth is, this castle actually exists, and it is called Bran Castle. The royal villa is just like the book described. This castle is thought to be the direct inspiration for Bram Stoker.
What led Bram Stoker to connect the dots with the castle and such bloody atrocities? The area was the stomping ground of Vlad the Impaler, a cruel and feared person of historical importance. His reputation stems from his reign of terror in 1459, when he burned down villages and took the lives of hundreds in Transylvania.
King Arthur's Camelot, Shropshire, England. The legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, Camelot, and the Sword in the Stone are the things of many happy childhood games, but the details are often lost on children. King Arthur of the legends was a valiant British leader who ruled in the 5th or 6th century and famously led the knights against Saxon invaders. He nabbed the position on the throne by pulling out a magical sword that was lodged in a stone, the sword Excalibur. The legend goes that only the true King of Britain could remove the sword, but the British Library manuscripts of the time show that Arthur may have been living in Shropshire at the time. Archaeological digs have revealed remains of an ancient city and castle that have been named Camelot, the domain of King Arthur. The dig site is now open to the public and has a museum linked to it with explanations and displays of all that has been uncovered. You can even explore the potential site of the sword in the stone at Mitchell's Foldstone Circle. Visit Arthur's birthplace of Tintagel near castle ruins and Merlin's Cave. Travel to Glastonbury to the Isle of Avalon, the king's final resting place, to pay homage to the legend of your childhood. Eldorado, Columbia. Now gather around, because this is a tale of your wildest dreams. Another childhood legend most people know is that of El Dorado, but most of us mistakenly think it means City of Gold. Sit tight, the plot goes way deeper. When Spanish explorers landed in South America in the 16th century, they were told stories of tribes of locals living high in the Andes Mountains of present-day Colombia. The tales told of a new chief who was sworn into power and was covered in gold dust, while gold and precious jewels were thrown into Lake Guatavita. This was to appease a god that they believed lived under the water. The Spaniards called this legend of the Golden Chief El Dorado, which means the Gilded One. This practice had ended by the time the Spanish arrived, as it was last conducted in the 15th century, before El Dorado was conquered by another tribe. The images of loads of gold and treasures lingered with the Spaniards and later the other Europeans who arrived. They had witnessed so much gold owned by natives across the continent that they believed that somewhere in the interior must be a place of great wealth. The Spaniards eventually found Lake Guatavita, and in 1545 attempted to drain it. They made some progress along the shore of the lake, and they found hundreds of gold pieces, proving that the legend is true. Many believe that great treasure remains in the lake, just in the water, beyond reach. Robin Hood's Sherwood Forest, Nottinghamshire, England. Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood, and Little John, and all the noble outlaws of Sherwood Forest have countless stories attached to them. In more modern stories, Robin Hood was a perfect shot on the archery field, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor with his gang of merry men, fighting injustices of the corrupt Sheriff of Nottingham. 600 years of plays, books, stories, ballads, poems, and movies have told of this merry band of outlaws.
It turns out that Sherwood Forest is a real place in Nottingham, England. The 450-acre National Nature Reserve not only houses some of Europe's oldest trees, but perhaps the real relics of one of the world's first superheroes. The forest contains what is believed to be the hideout of Robin Hood himself, a major oak tree trunk hollowed out and estimated to be 800 years old.
There's also an annual festival to celebrate all things medieval, like archery and jousting and other frivolities. You can even pay homage to Robin Hood at his final resting place, marked by a grave. Xanadu, Inner Mongolia, China. Xanadu is not only an 80s movie musical starring Olivia Newton-John on roller skates, but also a definition of a place of real luxury and comfort, contentment, and idyllic living. Xanadu is referenced in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem Kubla Khan. This idyllic place is a real place steeped in history. It was the summer capital of Kubla Khan's Tuan dynasty after 1264. It's in Inner Mongolia and was abandoned in 1430. It is now a World Heritage Site to help preserve the remains of the settlement planned according to the traditional Chinese feng shui methods. The settlement includes tombs and canals, palaces and temples, giving insight to an ancient civilization. There are areas to accommodate Mongolian tribal meetings and hunting, all set amongst mountains and a river.
All these places are amazing, but the one fantasy place I would love to visit is the Shire, hobbits included. Which fantasy setting would you love to step into?
1. Baffin Island, Nunavut, Canada. Nunavut is the largest island in Canada and the 5th largest on the planet. It is 507,451 square kilometers and now has a population of 13,000 people. It was named after the English explorer William Baffin, but historians believe that the human inhabitants of the deserted island lead much further back than his arrival. Historians believe that Baffin Island is the island described by Norse explorers from Greenland and Iceland, who referred to it as Helluland, which is named in Icelandic sagas like that of Eric the Red. The name Helluland was given by Leif Erikson, and it means land of flat rocks in the Old Norse language. When Erikson landed on Baffin Island, he found flat stones. The large stones made a big impression on him. He described them as so big that 2 men could lie on them, stretched on their backs with heel to heel. The island was full of polar foxes, according to his report, but inhospitable to humans, so he sailed on.